Tonight, we listen not for thunder, but for something quieter, something that does not arrive with storms, but with a thought. There is a presence that does not descend from the heavens, but emerges from within them, a whisper inside the mind of Zeus, a shape forming before it is seen, a will before it is born. She does not cry when she enters the world. She already knows, and in that knowing there is something unsettling, something that even the gods could not control. Before she had a name, she was already watching. Before she was worshipped, she was already thinking. Tonight, we begin with Athena, not as a goddess, but as an idea that refused to remain silent. If this kind of storytelling brings you inner peace, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if it truly brings you peace. And let me know in the comments where in the world are you listening from, and what time it is for you right now. It's always strangely comforting to know who else is out there closing their eyes to the same story. So settle in. Let the world grow quiet, and let's dream together for a while. There was a time when the sky did not speak in thunder, but in silence. Before the clang of bronze, before the shaping of cities, before wisdom learned to wear a name, there was only the slow turning of power in the hands of the divine. Olympus did not yet feel complete. It stood, vast and luminous, but restless, as though something essential had not yet been fought. At the centre of it all sat Zeus, not merely as king, but as a being burdened by dominion. Power, once taken, does not rest easily. It circles the mind, it questions itself, it wonders what might rise against it, and somewhere within that vast and watchful mind, something began to form. Not a rebellion, not a child in the ordinary sense, but an idea. It came quietly, without the violence that marks so many divine births. No trembling earth, no cries from the heavens, only a growing presence, patient, observant, and impossibly aware. It did not rush to exist. It waited, it listened, it understood before it ever saw. This was not the making of a goddess shaped by desire or accident. This was something more deliberate and more dangerous, for what is more unsettling than strength that thinks? Zeus, who had swallowed prophecy and bent fate to his will, could feel it, a subtle shift within himself. Not pain, not yet, but a pressure. A knowing that something inside him was not entirely his own. And in that quiet realization, there lingered a question no god had ever answered. What happens when power gives birth to thought? The answer did not come in words. It waited, and it grew. Long before the clash of bronze and the measured steps of civilization, there existed a silence within Olympus that no storm could disturb. It was not the silence of absence, but of something waiting, something unformed, yet already aware. Zeus, ruler of the heavens, had grown accustomed to the weight of his own supremacy. He had overthrown his father, swallowed the threat of prophecy, and secured his dominion with a force that reshaped the cosmos. And yet, power does not quiet the mind. It sharpens it. It turns inward. In the stillness between decrees and thunder, there came a presence he could not name. At first, it was no more than a flicker, a thought that did not feel entirely his own. It moved differently, with a clarity that did not belong to instinct or impulse. Where Zeus was force, this was precision. Where he commanded, this observed. It did not challenge him. That was what made it unsettling. The Olympian king was no stranger to threats. He knew rebellion in its loudest forms, in the rising of titans, in the defiance of gods, in the endless hunger for power that defined the divine. But this was something quieter. It did not seek to overthrow, it sought to understand. And understanding, unlike force, cannot be struck down. The presence grew slowly, like a dawn that refused to reveal itself all at once. It did not arrive with urgency, it unfolded. Each moment of awareness seemed to deepen rather than expand, as though it already contained more than it revealed. Zeus began to notice its rhythm. In the pause before judgment, it was there. In the space between anger and action, it lingered. In the fleeting instant where certainty might have been questioned, it remained. It was not a voice, and yet it spoke. Not in words, but in clarity. The king of gods, who had shaped fate to his will, found himself accompanied by something that did not obey him. It did not resist, either. It simply existed alongside his thoughts, refining them, sharpening them, sometimes even stilling them. For the first time since his ascent, Zeus was not alone within himself. There was a subtle shift in how he ruled. The storms still came, but they were no longer reckless. Judgment grew measured. Decisions carried a weight that extended beyond power, as though they had been seen from more than one perspective. The other gods did not notice at first. To them, Zeus was unchanged, still the thunderer, still the unchallenged sovereign. But there are changes that do not reveal themselves in action, only in intention. And intention is something even gods rarely perceive. The presence continued to grow, not outward, but inward. It began to feel less like a thought and more like a structure, something forming with purpose, not chaotic, not wild, but deliberate. It was as though a second mind was being shaped within the first, not to replace it, but to coexist. And yet there was something else. Something that lingered beneath even this quiet transformation. A memory. Zeus had long believed he had escaped the designs of fate. He had swallowed what was meant to surpass him. He had consumed prophecy itself, ensuring that no child would rise above him as he had risen above Cronus. But prophecy is not so easily silenced. It changes form. And now, in the quietest corner of his being, it seemed to breathe again. Not as a threat, not as a rival, but as something far more complex. Something that did not seek to overthrow power, but to redefine it. The thought that lived within him was not chaotic like the Titans, nor ambitious like the gods who might one day challenge his throne. It was patient, it was watchful, it was wise. And wisdom, unlike strength, does not demand a place in the world, it creates one. Zeus began to understand, though not fully. There are realizations that come not as revelations, but as quiet certainties that refuse to be ignored. He could feel that whatever was forming within him was not temporary. It would not fade, it would not be undone. It was becoming, and in its becoming, it was changing him. The king of the gods, who had mastered the external world, found himself confronted by something internal, something that did not bend to will, but invited it to evolve. There was no fear in this realization. But there was unease, for even Zeus, who commanded the sky, could not command what was growing inside his own mind. And so, he waited, not as a ruler, but as a witness. As the whisper within him grew clearer and closer to becoming something the world had never seen. There are moments in myth where the future does not arrive as a distant possibility, but as a quiet certainty that settles into the present. For Zeus, that certainty had a name long before it had a form. Metis. She was not like the others who moved through Olympus with pride or hunger. She did not seek dominion, nor did she clamour for recognition. There was something older in her, a kind of intelligence that did not announce itself. She understood without needing to prove it. She knew without needing to speak, and it was this quiet knowing that drew Zeus toward her, not with the urgency of desire, but with something slower, more deliberate. He, who had conquered through force, found himself in the presence of something that could not be conquered at all. Metis did not resist him. She did not need to. To stand before her was to feel as though one's intentions had already been seen, already weighed. There was no struggle in her, no visible defiance, only an unsettling calm that made even the king of the gods aware of his own limits. Their union was not marked by spectacle. There were no great omens, no trembling heavens. It unfolded quietly, almost inevitably, as though it had been decided long before either of them understood it. But myths do not leave such unions without consequence. Somewhere beyond Olympus, in the realm where fate is not shaped but revealed, a prophecy began to take form. It did not arrive with thunder. It was spoken softly, almost as a warning whispered too late, that Meti would bear a child of immense power, a daughter first, wise beyond measure, and then a son, destined to surpass his father. It was a pattern Zeus knew too well. He had lived it. Cronus had feared his own children, and sought to devour them, believing that by swallowing the future he could preserve the present. And yet, Zeus had risen anyway, fulfilling the very fate that had been feared. Now, the same shadow fell across him. The thought did not erupt into panic. Zeus had grown beyond that. But it lingered. It moved through his mind with a quiet persistence, reshaping his certainty. Power, once secured, is never entirely safe. It is always watched, always waiting for the moment it might be replaced. And this time, the threat was not external, it was within his own union. Metis carried something that could not be ignored. Yet she herself seemed untouched by the weight of the prophecy. If she feared it, she did not show it. If she understood its full meaning, she did not speak of it. She remained as she always had been, composed, thoughtful, distant, in a way that made her impossible to fully grasp. It was this stillness that unsettled Zeus the most, for he could not see in her the reflection of fear he expected. Only acceptance. And acceptance, in the face of prophecy, can be more terrifying than resistance. The whisper within Zeus, the growing presence that had begun as a thought, seemed to respond to this moment. It sharpened. It deepened. As though it too understood what was at stake. The idea that had been forming inside him was no longer separate from the unfolding fate. It was connected, intimately, to Metis and to the prophecy she carried. And slowly, a realization began to take shape. If the future could not be escaped, it might be contained. Zeus had already defied the natural order once. He had swallowed what was meant to overthrow him. He had turned the act of consumption into an act of control. Now, the same thought returned, not as desperation, but as strategy. To preserve power, one must sometimes absorb what threatens it. Metis, with all her wisdom, could see further than most. Perhaps she saw what was coming. Perhaps she understood the inevitability of it. Or perhaps she chose not to resist. For in myth, wisdom does not always act to prevent fate. Sometimes it allows it. The moment came without violence. No struggle, no cries, no visible defiance. Zeus drew Metis into himself, not in anger, but with a calm that mirrored her own. It was an act that seemed both decisive and uncertain, as though even he did not fully understand what he had done. The prophecy, he believed, had been stopped, contained, silenced within him. But something remained. The presence within his mind did not disappear. If anything, it became clearer, more defined. Metis was gone from the world, but not from existence. Her wisdom had not been destroyed, it had been absorbed, and within Zeus it continued to grow. Not as a memory, not as an echo, but as something alive. The prophecy had not ended. It had changed shape, and in that transformation, something far more profound was taking place. For the child that had been foretold was no longer separate from Zeus. It was becoming part of him, and soon it would demand to be born. There is a strange stillness that follows an act believed to have secured the future. For a time, Zeus felt it. The world did not tremble. Olympus did not fracture. The heavens remained obedient to his will. What had been foretold, the rise of something beyond him, seemed at last contained within his own body. But containment is not the same as silence. What Zeus had taken into himself did not dissolve. It endured. At first it was subtle, a presence already familiar, yet altered. The quiet intelligence that had once moved like a whisper through his thoughts now felt closer, heavier, though not burdensome. It did not press against him with force. It settled within him, as though it had always belonged there. Time, in the realm of gods, does not pass as it does for mortals. It stretches, folds, and lingers. And within that slow unfolding, something continued to take shape. Not as flesh, not yet, but as awareness. It was no longer only a thought, it was becoming a mind. Zeus could feel it in the moments between action and decision. Where once there had been instinct, now there was reflection. Where once there had been certainty, now there was consideration. And in those quiet intervals, the presence revealed itself more clearly. It observed, it measured, it understood. It did not challenge Zeus's authority, nor did it submit to it. It simply existed alongside it, like a second horizon within the same sky. There were moments when Zeus would pause, not out of hesitation, but because something within him had already seen the consequence of what he was about to do. This was not prophecy. It was comprehension. And comprehension, once awakened, cannot be undone. The gods around him remained unaware. They saw only the ruler they had always known, composed, decisive, unshaken. But within him, a quieter transformation was unfolding. The child of Meti was not growing in the way of ordinary beings. There was no heartbeat, no breath, no form that could be touched. Only presence. And that presence was learning. From everything. From every decree Zeus made. From every storm he summoned. From every silence he kept. It absorbed without effort, as though knowledge itself flowed toward it. There was no impatience in it, no urgency. It did not seek to be born. It waited. And in that waiting, it became something far more complete than anything that had come before it. Zeus began to sense that what he carried was not merely his child, but something shaped by both power and wisdom, his own force intertwined with the quiet intelligence of Meti. A union not just of bodies, but of principles, strength and thought, and yet there was an unease that even he could not ignore. For this presence did not feel dependent on him. It was within him, yes, but it was not his. There were moments, fleeting and difficult to grasp, when it felt as though the presence was observing him in return. Not with judgment, not with defiance, but with a clarity that left no room for illusion. Zeus, who had reshaped the order of the cosmos, was being seen, not as a king, but as something finite. And in that quiet recognition, something shifted. The balance between creator and creation began to blur. The presence continued to deepen. It was no longer only aware of Zeus, it was aware of the world, of the patterns within it, of the fragile structures that held it together, of the ways in which power could build and destroy. It understood conflict, not as chaos, but as something that could be guided. It understood order, not as control, but as something that could be shaped. And slowly, without declaration, it began to define itself. Not through form, but through purpose. There was something inevitable in this becoming, not the inevitability of fate imposed from outside, but of something that had reached a point where it could no longer remain contained. Zeus could feel it now, not as a distant presence, but as something approaching the edge of emergence. Not violently, but with certainty. There was a pressure, though it was not pain. A gathering. A sense that what had been forming in silence was preparing to enter the world, and yet it did not rush. It remained composed. Complete in a way that no birth had ever been. For this was not a being that would arrive in ignorance. It would not open its eyes to learn. It had already seen. It had already understood. Zeus, for all his power, could do nothing to hasten or prevent what was coming. For the first time since he had claimed the throne of the heavens, he stood not as the architect of what would be, but as its vessel. And within him, the child of thought and power drew closer to the moment when it would no longer remain unseen. A birth unlike any other, a beginning that had already lived in silence, waiting only for the world to notice. There are births that begin in darkness and rise slowly into light. And then there are those that arrive already illuminated. What had been forming within Zeus could no longer remain unseen. It did not announce itself with fear, nor did it struggle toward existence. But the stillness that had once surrounded him began to fracture, not outwardly, but from within. The quiet equilibrium of his mind, once vast and controlled, now held something that pressed toward emergence. At first, it was a discomfort, not pain, but pressure, as though thought itself had become too large for the space it inhabited. Zeus, who had endured battles that reshaped the heavens, found himself unsettled by something he could not strike, could not command, could not escape. The presence that had once been silent now demanded form. It was no longer enough to exist as awareness, it would be seen. The gods began to notice the change, not in his authority, but in his stillness. Zeus, who moved with certainty, now paused in ways that could not be explained. His gaze lingered, his silence deepened. There was something gathering beneath the surface, something no storm could conceal. And then it came, not as a gradual unfolding, but as a rupture. A cry broke through the heavens, not of fear, but of force, as Zeus called upon Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, whose hands shaped what others could not comprehend. The command was simple, but it carried a weight unlike any other. To split open the head of a god. There was no resistance from Zeus, only inevitability. Hephaestus raised his tool, not as a weapon, but as an instrument of revelation, and when it struck, the sound did not echo like thunder. It rang with something sharper. Final. From that moment, the silence that had endured for so long broke completely. Light emerged where there had been none, and from within Zeus she stepped forward. Not as an infant, not as something unfinished, but as a being already complete. Athena. She did not cry, she did not search for breath. She stood, fully formed, armoured, radiant with a presence that did not need to grow into itself. Her eyes did not wander in confusion. They were steady, focused, aware, as though she had been watching long before she arrived. There was no moment of becoming, only arrival. The gods, who had witnessed countless births and transformations, stood in silence. For this was something different. There was no chaos in her, no wildness, no instability. She carried with her a calm that did not diminish her power, but refined it. Where Ares would embody the violence of war, Athena held something else entirely, the understanding of it. She was not shaped by the world, she entered it already knowing, and in that knowing there was something both reassuring and deeply unsettling. Zeus, freed from the pressure that had consumed him, looked upon her not as a threat, but as something he could not fully claim. She had come from him, but she did not belong to him. There was no defiance in her gaze. But there was independence, a clarity that existed apart from his will. The prophecy had not been undone. It had been fulfilled in a way no one had expected. The child who would surpass was not a son who would overthrow, but a daughter who would stand beside and yet remain beyond. Athena did not seek a throne. She did not demand recognition. She simply was. And in her presence, the nature of power itself seemed to shift. For the first time, strength was not defined by force alone. It was defined by thought. The heavens did not tremble at her arrival. They grew quieter, as though something essential had finally taken its place within them. Athena looked upon Olympus not as a newcomer, but as something already familiar. The patterns of the world, the movements of gods and mortals alike, all of it lay open before her. She did not need to learn it. She understood it. And in that understanding, she began to move, not with urgency, but with purpose. The birth had ended. But something far greater had begun. For the world now held a presence that did not simply exist within it, but could shape how it was understood. War had existed long before Athena. It moved through the world like a storm without memory, sudden, consuming, and indifferent to what it left behind. It was the language of gods and mortals alike, spoken in fire and iron, in cries that dissolved into silence as quickly as they rose. And within Olympus, war already had a face, Ares. He did not question it. He did not shape it. He became it. In him, conflict was immediate, a force that surged forward without hesitation, without reflection. There was no distance between impulse and action, no space for thought. But Athena did not move like that. She stood apart from the very thing she embodied. From the moment of her arrival, it became clear that she did not oppose war, but neither did she surrender to it. Where Ares revelled in its chaos, Athena observed its structure. Where he sought dominance, she sought understanding. This difference was not loud. It did not declare itself in open rivalry. It revealed itself in quiet moments, in how battles were seen before they were fought, in how outcomes were shaped long before weapons were raised. Athena did not enter conflict blindly. She entered it already aware of its end. To the gods, this was unfamiliar. Power had always been something that acted. But here was something that anticipated. Athena's presence began to alter how war was understood, not only among the divine, but among mortals as well. Where once victory belonged to the strongest, it now began to favour the most discerning. Strategy emerged, not as a tool, but as a way of seeing. Battles became patterns, movements became meaning, and war, which had once been only destruction, began to reveal something else. Order. Athena did not celebrate violence, but she did not reject it either. She understood that conflict was woven into the fabric of existence, that creation and destruction were not opposites, but reflections of one another. What mattered was not the presence of war, but how it was guided. This was her domain. Not the clash of swords, but the space before they met. The moment where decision shaped destiny. Mortals, though they could not fully comprehend her nature, began to feel her influence. Leaders who listened, who paused, who considered, who looked beyond the immediate, found themselves aligned with something they could not name. A clarity. A stillness in the midst of chaos. It was not divine intervention in the way they understood it. Athena did not descend to command them. She did not impose her will. She revealed possibilities, and in doing so she reshaped the very meaning of power. Ares remained unchanged. He did not diminish. He did not adapt. He continued to embody the raw force of conflict, necessary, undeniable, and unrefined. But beside him, Athena stood as something different, not a contradiction, but a balance. Together, they revealed the dual nature of war, one driven by impulse, the other by thought. And in that contrast, something deeper became visible. that strength without understanding is fleeting, and understanding without strength is silent. Athena existed where the two converged. There was no arrogance in her, no need to prove superiority. Her presence alone altered the outcome of things. Battles won through her guidance often appeared effortless, as though the conflict had resolved itself before it truly began. This, more than anything, unsettled the gods. For power that could be seen could be challenged, but power that worked unseen could not be confronted at all. Zeus watched her with a quiet awareness. He recognized in her something that neither threatened nor obeyed him. She did not seek to rule, but she shaped what rulership meant. In her, the legacy of Meti endured not as memory, but as living presence. The wisdom that had once been consumed now stood fully realized, no longer contained, no longer hidden. And yet, Athena remained alone in a way that was difficult to define, not isolated, but apart. For to see the world as she did, to understand it before it unfolded, was to stand at a distance from it. She did not lose herself in conflict. She did not become what she guided. She remained aware, always, and in that awareness there was a quiet solitude. The world would come to depend on her. Cities would rise under her influence. Heroes would seek her counsel. Wars would be shaped by her unseen hand. But she would never belong to any of it. For Athena was not defined by the world she moved through. She defined how it was understood. And in the silent space between thought and action, she remained. There are bonds among the gods that resemble those of mortals, alliances, rivalries, affections shaped by need and memory. But between Zeus and Athena, there was something more difficult to name. She had come from him, not as a child shaped by time, but as a presence already complete. There had been no years of guidance, no slow unfolding of identity. From the moment she stepped into the light, she stood as she would always be, and this, more than anything, set her apart. Zeus was accustomed to authority that moved outward, commands given, obedience returned. The order of Olympus rested on this rhythm. Even those who resisted him did so within the structure of his power. But Athena did not resist, and she did not obey. She existed beside his will, not beneath it. At first, this distinction was subtle. She did not challenge Zeus openly. She did not seek to undermine him. In councils of the gods, she spoke with clarity, never with defiance. Her words did not provoke conflict. They resolved it. And yet, within that calm, there was something ungovernable. For Athena did not shape her thoughts to please. She spoke as she saw. There were moments when Zeus would listen, not as a king receiving counsel, but as something else, something closer to recognition. In her voice there was an echo of what he had once tried to contain, the quiet intelligence of Meti. But it had changed. It no longer lived in silence. It stood before him. Athena did not remind him of what he had swallowed. She was what remained of it, and perhaps what had been transformed by it. The other gods began to sense this difference more clearly over time. They saw how Zeus regarded her not with indulgence, as he might other children, nor with suspicion, as he might a rival. There was something steadier in his attention, an awareness that did not seek to limit her. For what could be limited in something that had never been shaped by boundaries? Athena moved through Olympus with a kind of quiet independence. She did not attach herself to factions or disputes. Where others aligned themselves with power, she aligned herself with understanding. This did not isolate her, but it placed her at a distance from the constant currents of divine conflict. She could step into disputes and resolve them, but she did not remain within them. She could guide, but not be claimed. This unsettled some. There is comfort in knowing where a force belongs, who commands it, who can call upon it. Athena belonged nowhere in that sense. She could not be summoned like a storm, nor persuaded like an ally. She chose, and her choices were guided by something that did not shift with desire or fear. It was not loyalty, it was principle. This made her reliable, and impossible to control. Zeus understood this in a way the others could not. There had been a moment, long before her birth, when he believed that by swallowing Meti he could contain what was to come, that he could hold wisdom within himself, shape it, direct it. But wisdom, once awakened, does not remain contained. It becomes its own force. Athena was not the extension of Zeus's will. She was the evolution of it. And evolution does not return to its origin. There were times when her presence altered even his decisions, not through pressure, not through argument, but through the clarity she brought into the space between thought and action. Zeus could ignore many things, but he could not ignore understanding once it had been seen. And Athena made things visible, not only the paths that lay ahead, but the consequences that followed them. In this way, she did not limit power, she refined it. Among mortals, her nature became something both revered and difficult to grasp. They built temples in her name, honoured her as a protector, a guide, a presence that stood beside them in moments of uncertainty. But even in their devotion, there remained a distance. Athena did not offer comfort in the way other gods might. She did not promise safety. She offered clarity. And clarity can be a lonely gift, for to see the world as it is, without illusion, is to stand apart from those who cannot, or will not, look as closely. Athena did not soften what she revealed, she illuminated it. And in that illumination there was both guidance and burden. The daughter of Zeus had no need to rebel against him. She had already moved beyond the need for such things. She stood not in opposition, but in distinction, a presence that could not be absorbed, could not be directed, could not be reduced to function or role. She was not bound by the patterns that governed others, for she had not grown into herself, she had arrived as she was. And in that stillness of being, there was nothing left to control. There are forces in the world that mirror one another, not in likeness, but in contrast. Athena and Ares did not oppose each other in the way enemies do. They revealed each other. Where Ares moved, the world trembled. His presence was immediate, undeniable, a force that did not ask why, only how. Conflict, in his hands, became instinct. It surged forward without hesitation, without reflection, consuming whatever lay in its path. He was not cruel by intention, he simply was. A manifestation of war in its purest, most unrestrained form. Athena, by contrast, entered the same domain without ever becoming it. She did not deny war, she did not diminish it. But she saw it from a distance, even while standing within it. To her, conflict was not an eruption, it was a pattern. This difference was not always understood by the other gods. To them, war was a single thing, a clash of forces, a test of strength, a necessary expression of power. That it could be approached in more than one way was something they had not considered. But Athena did not approach war. She interpreted it. There were moments when the two stood in proximity, not in battle against each other, but in the presence of the same unfolding event. Ares would move with urgency, his attention fixed on the immediate, the visible. Athena would remain still for a moment longer, her gaze extending beyond what was seen. He acted, she anticipated, and in that subtle divergence, outcomes began to change. Victories once decided by strength alone began to favour those who could perceive the structure beneath the chaos. Armies guided by Athena's unseen influence did not always appear stronger. They appeared certain. as though each movement had already been understood before it was made. Ares did not resent this. Resentment requires reflection. But there were moments, rare and fleeting, when something like confusion passed through him. Not because Athena opposed him, but because she did not engage with war in the way he recognized. She did not lose herself in it. She did not become it. And yet, she shaped it. This was something he could not fully grasp. The gods often spoke of them as counterparts, two faces of the same force. But this was not entirely true. Ares was war as experience. Athena was war as understanding. One existed within the moment. The other extended beyond it. There were times when their paths crossed more directly, in the silent tension before conflict, where decisions hovered just beyond action. In those spaces, Athena's presence was most deeply felt, not as command, but as awareness. Ares would move forward, Athena would see where that movement would lead, and sometimes, without confrontation, without declaration, the path would shift, not away from war, but towards something shaped rather than unleashed. To mortals, the distinction between them became profound. Those who followed Ares sought strength, courage, the raw surge of life that comes in the presence of danger. They embraced the immediacy of conflict, the clarity that comes when all things are reduced to survival. Those who turned to Athena sought something quieter, guidance, insight, the ability to see beyond the moment. She did not promise victory, she offered the means to approach it. And often, that was enough. But this separation was never absolute. War, in its nature, contains both forces. There is always a moment of impulse, and always a moment of thought. Ares and Athena did not cancel each other. They completed something larger, and yet, within that completion, there remained a quiet imbalance. For while Ares was bound to the immediacy of war, Athena was not bound to it at all. She could step away, she could observe, she could choose when to engage, and when to remain distant. Ares could not. War, for him, was not a domain, it was existence. And so, in a way that was never spoken, Athena held a kind of freedom he did not possess. She could understand conflict without being consumed by it. She could shape it without belonging to it. This did not make her superior, but it made her separate. The space between them was not one of rivalry, but of recognition. Each revealed the limits of the other. Ares showed what happens when force is left to itself. Athena showed what happens when it is seen, and in that quiet, unspoken exchange, the nature of war became something more than it had ever been before. There are creations that rise from necessity, and others that emerge from understanding. Civilization, in its earliest form, was fragile, a quiet defiance against the vastness of the natural world. Mortals gathered, built, shaped their surroundings in ways that separated them from the wilderness they had once belonged to. But these early structures were uncertain, easily undone, guided more by instinct than design. Athena did not create civilization. She revealed how it could endure. Where others among the gods offered gifts of fire, of harvest, of survival, Athena offered something less visible, yet far more lasting. She offered structure, not as constraint, but as coherence. To those who looked beyond immediate need, her presence became apparent. In the alignment of stone upon stone, in the shaping of tools that served more than a single purpose, in the quiet emergence of laws that governed not through force, but through shared understanding. She did not descend to command these things. She did not dictate their form. She illuminated the principles that allowed them to exist, and those who perceived them began to build differently. Cities rose, not merely as shelters, but as expressions of thought. Walls were not only barriers, but boundaries defined with intention. Roads were not only paths, but connections that extended beyond immediate sight. Under Athena's influence, the scattered became ordered, the temporary began to last. There was no spectacle in this transformation, no sudden moment where the world changed entirely. It unfolded slowly, as all lasting things do, a shift in how mortals saw their place within the world, not as beings surviving within it, but as participants shaping it. Athena stood at the centre of this shift, though she was rarely seen. Her presence was not in the material itself, but in the understanding behind it. The craftsman who shaped a tool with precision. The architect who saw not only what was needed, but what could be sustained. The leader who chose not only strength, but fairness. In all these moments, there was something that guided without being named. This was her domain, not dominion over land, but over the ways in which it was shaped. Among the gods, this role was not always recognized as power. It did not command the skies or the seas. It did not bend the forces of nature. It worked quietly, through minds rather than elements. But its effects were undeniable, for while storms pass and oceans shift, the structures built through understanding endure. Athena's influence began to define the spaces where mortals gathered, where they formed identities not as individuals alone, but as communities. These were not merely settlements. They were beginnings of something more complex, something that required not only survival, but cooperation, foresight, restraint. In these places, conflict did not disappear, but it changed. It became something that could be mediated, guided, resolved through means other than force. This, too, was her gift, not the absence of conflict, but the possibility of shaping it into something constructive. Athena did not stand above civilization as its ruler. She stood within it as its quiet foundation. Unseen, yet essential. There was a stillness in her presence that reflected the nature of what she nurtured. Not growth that expanded without limit, but growth that understood its boundaries. Not power that dominated, but power that sustained. And yet, even within this domain, there was a distance. Athena did not belong to the cities she helped shape. She did not reside within them as something dependent on their existence. She remained apart, as she always had, a presence that could be called upon, but never contained. For civilization, like war, was something she could guide without becoming. This was the quiet paradox of her nature. She was essential to what endured. But she was never bound by it. Mortals would come to honour her not only as a goddess, but as a symbol of reason, of order, of the fragile balance that allows human life to take form and persist. Temples would rise in her name, not as places of fear, but of reflection. Spaces where the act of building itself became an offering. And in those spaces, her presence would linger. Not in grandeur, but in the quiet certainty that what had been shaped with understanding could outlast even the gods. There are rivalries born from anger, and there are those born from difference. Between Athena and Poseidon, it was never a matter of simple opposition. They did not seek the same things, and yet their paths crossed at a point where the world itself seemed to hesitate. The land that would one day become a city stood between them, not yet shaped, not yet claimed, but waiting. Poseidon arrived as the sea does, with presence that could not be ignored. His power was vast, restless, carrying with it the depth and unpredictability of the waters he ruled. Where he moved, the earth felt it. Where he claimed, it responded. Athena came differently. She did not arrive to overwhelm. She arrived to consider. The contest between them was not declared as a battle. It was offered as a choice. The gods would decide which of them would give the greater gift to the land, not for themselves, but for those who would one day inhabit it. Poseidon struck first. With a force that echoed through the ground, he drove his trident into the earth. From it burst forth a spring, water drawn from the depths, a symbol of power, of life, of the sea's reach extending inland. But the water that rose was not gentle. It carried with it the taste of salt, a reminder that the sea gives, but also takes. It was a gift of strength, of movement, of dominion that could not be easily resisted. The gods looked upon it and understood its meaning, a connection to the vastness beyond the land, a promise of power and the risks that accompany it. Then Athena stepped forward. There was no force in her gesture, no sudden display. She touched the ground, and from it grew something small, almost unremarkable at first glance. An olive tree. Its roots reached quietly into the earth. Its branches extended slowly, not in defiance but in patience. It did not announce itself with power, it offered something else. Endurance. From it came fruit that could nourish, oil that could sustain, wood that could be shaped into tools and shelter. It did not promise dominance, it promised continuity. The contrast between the two gifts was not immediate in its significance. One was striking, the other subtle. But time has a way of revealing what spectacle cannot. The gods considered, and in their judgment they saw beyond the moment. They chose Athena, not because her gift was greater in power, but because it was greater in understanding. Poseidon did not accept this quietly. His nature did not allow for such stillness. The sea does not yield without movement, without reaction. There was anger in him, not only at the decision, but at what it represented. For Athena's gift had revealed something he could not offer: restraint. The land was named for her. Athens, a place that would carry her presence not as domination, but as guidance. But the tension between them did not vanish. It lingered, like the edge of a storm that never fully arrives, yet never entirely fades. Poseidon remained what he was, vast, powerful, necessary. The sea would always surround the land, shaping its borders, reminding it of forces beyond its control. Athena remained what she was, a presence within the land, shaping how it was lived in, how it endured. Their domains did not cancel each other, they defined each other. For what is land without the boundary of the sea? And what is the sea without something to meet? In Athens, this balance took form, a city that would grow not through force alone, but through thought, through structure, through the quiet influence of a goddess who did not impose, but revealed. The olive tree would stand as a symbol, not of victory, but of a choice between power that commands and power that sustains. And though the decision had been made, the presence of Poseidon never truly left. His waters would continue to shape the edges of the land, just as Athena's influence would shape what rose within it. Together, in tension and in contrast, they would define the space where civilization took root, not as a place free from conflict, but as a place where conflict could be understood. A city does not begin with stone. It begins with a way of seeing. Long before its walls were raised, before its temples reached toward the sky, Athens existed as a possibility, a place where the influence of Athena had already taken root in thought before it ever shaped the land. The decision had been made. The gods had chosen her gift over that of Poseidon, and with that choice came something more than a name. It marked the beginning of a different kind of space, not one defined by conquest alone, but by intention. The earliest forms of the city were modest, uncertain. Mortals gathered where the land allowed it, shaping their dwellings from what they could find. But beneath these beginnings, there was a quiet guidance, a sense that what was being built was not temporary. Athena's presence was not visible in the way of storms or omens. It appeared in decisions, in how the land was divided, in how structures were placed not only for use, but for harmony. Paths formed that did not simply lead from one place to another, but connected spaces with purpose. Walls rose not only to defend, but to define. The city grew slowly, as all enduring things must. There was no single moment when Athens became what it would be. It unfolded, each generation adding to what the previous had begun, not by imitation, but by understanding the principles beneath it. This was Athena's influence, not repetition, but continuity. Under her quiet guidance, something rare began to emerge. A place where thought was not only valued, but cultivated, where speech carried weight, not because of volume, but because of meaning, where decisions were not made in haste, but considered in the space between impulse and action. This did not remove conflict. Disagreements remained, as they always do where humans gather, but they were shaped differently, not as immediate eruptions of force, but as tensions that could be examined, understood, and, at times, resolved. Athens became more than a settlement. It became a reflection of a way of thinking. Temples rose in honour of Athena, not merely as acts of devotion, but as embodiments of the very principles she represented. Proportion, balance, clarity, these were not aesthetic choices alone, but expressions of a deeper understanding. The Parthenon would one day stand as a testament to this, not only as a structure, but as a statement. That beauty, when guided by thought, can endure. But long before such monuments, the spirit of the city was already forming. It lived in the interactions of its people, in the shaping of laws that sought fairness rather than dominance, in the recognition that power, when shared and examined, could take forms other than control. Athena did not impose these ideas. She did not command the city to become what it did. She revealed what was possible. And the people, in their own way, responded. There was something fragile in this beginning, a balance that could easily be lost, for the world beyond Athens remained unchanged, vast, unpredictable, filled with forces that did not bend to reason or structure. The city would face war, uncertainty, the constant tension between what it aspired to be and what it was. Athena did not remove these challenges. She did not shield the city from them. Instead, she remained as a presence within it, not as a protector in the simplest sense, but as a guide. A reminder that even in conflict, there is a way of seeing that can shape what follows. Athens would rise, and it would falter. It would become a place of great thought, and at times, great contradiction. For no city, no matter how guided, escapes the nature of those who inhabit it, and yet something of Athena would remain within it, not as perfection, but as aspiration. The idea that a city could be more than survival, that it could be a space where thought itself takes form. In the quiet growth of Athens, the influence of Athena found its most enduring expression, not in a single moment, but in a continuous unfolding. A city that did not simply exist, but reflected the mind of the goddess who had shaped its beginning. There is a distance between gods and mortals that is rarely crossed without consequence. It is not only a matter of power, but of perception. The divine sees in ways that mortals cannot sustain. To witness too much, too clearly, is to stand outside the rhythms that give human life its meaning. And so, when gods descend, they often do so with force, with presence that reshapes the moment. Athena did not descend in this way. She did not arrive as something overwhelming. She entered quietly, often unseen, and when she was seen, it was not always recognized for what it was. She moved among mortals not as a ruler, but as a presence, guiding, observing, shaping without imposing. She took forms that allowed her to be heard without being feared. A traveller, a voice in council, a figure whose words carried weight beyond their origin. There was something deliberate in this approach. Athena did not seek worship through awe. She sought understanding through proximity. Among mortals, her influence revealed itself in moments of decision. A king, uncertain before a choice that would shape his people. A craftsman, hesitating before the final shaping of his work. A thinker, searching for clarity in a world that often refused to offer it. In these moments, there would be something, a thought, a realization, a quiet shift in perspective. It did not feel like command, it felt like recognition, as though the answer had always been present, waiting to be seen. This was Athena's way. She did not place knowledge into the minds of mortals. She revealed what was already possible within them. And yet, there was a cost to this closeness. For while Athena could walk among humans, she did not become one of them. She did not share in their limitations. She did not forget what she knew. And so, there remained a distance that could not be bridged. Mortals, in their devotion, often misunderstood this. They built temples, offered prayers, sought her favour in times of need. They imagined her as a protector who could alter fate, who could intervene to spare them from suffering. But Athena did not alter fate in this way. She did not remove hardship. She illuminated it. She offered the means to navigate it, not escape it. This made her presence both revered and difficult. For to follow her guidance was not always to find comfort. It was to see more clearly, and with that clarity came responsibility. There were moments when mortals encountered her directly, without disguise. These encounters were rare, and they were never simple. To stand before Athena as she truly was to feel the weight of understanding in its pure form. There was no illusion in her presence, no softness that concealed the truth of things. Some found in this a kind of awe that deepened into reverence. Others found something more unsettling, for she did not adjust herself to be easily understood. She remained as she was. In these encounters, the difference between mortal and divine became most visible, not in strength, but in perception. Athena could see the whole of a life in a way mortals could only experience in fragments. She could perceive the patterns that connected actions to consequences, choices to outcomes, in ways that transcended the immediacy of human experience. And yet, she did not use this to dominate. She used it to guide. There is a quiet tension in this role, to see more than others and to choose not to impose that vision, to offer insight knowing it may not be accepted, to stand beside mortals, understanding them fully while remaining beyond their reach. This was the space Athena inhabited, a presence within the human world but never fully part of it. Over time, her relationship with mortals would deepen, shaped by the individuals who encountered her influence most directly. Heroes would rise, guided by her clarity. Cities would flourish under her principles. And yet, there would always remain moments where her presence led not to ease, but to challenge. For understanding does not always lead to peace. Sometimes it leads to choices that must be made with full awareness of their cost. Athena did not turn away from this. She remained, in the quiet spaces where decisions are formed, in the unseen moments where thought becomes action. Among mortals, she was not a distant figure, she was something closer, not a force that shaped their world from above, but a presence that walked within it, unseen, guiding the fragile line between ignorance and understanding. There are gifts that elevate, and there are gifts that isolate. Among mortals, skill is often praised as something earned, shaped through patience, refined through effort. But there are moments when talent appears so complete, so precise, that it seems less like something learned and more like something given. Arachne was such a moment. Her hands moved with a certainty that did not falter. Threads obeyed her, not as tools, but as extensions of something deeper. What she created was not merely craft, it was vision made visible. Those who saw her work did not speak at first. They paused, as though what lay before them required a different kind of attention. In the pattern she wove, there was no excess, no hesitation. Each line carried purpose. Each image held clarity. It was not imitation of the world, it was understanding of it. And in that understanding, there was something that drew quiet admiration, and something that began, slowly, to unsettle. For admiration, when left unchecked, can become something else. Arachne did not speak of her gift with humility, she spoke of it with certainty. Not as something she had received, but as something that belonged entirely to her. There was no invocation of the divine, no acknowledgement of guidance beyond herself, only the steady assertion that her skill stood above all others, even that of Athena. The words did not echo across Olympus with force. They did not rise as a challenge shouted into the heavens. They settled, quietly. But some words do not need to be loud to be heard. Athena became aware, not with anger, not immediately, but with attention. For this was not merely pride, it was a question. What does it mean for a mortal to claim equality with the divine? And more deeply, what happens when skill becomes detached from understanding? Athena did not descend in her true form. She came as something smaller, an old woman, worn by time, her presence easy to dismiss. She stood before Arachne, not as a goddess, but as a voice that offered a single suggestion. To reconsider. To recognise that skill, no matter how refined, exists within a larger order. That acknowledgement does not diminish ability, it places it. Arachne did not listen. There was no hesitation in her response. She did not reject the old woman with anger. She dismissed her with certainty. For she saw no reason to question what she already believed to be true. In that moment, the distance between them became absolute. Athena revealed herself, not as spectacle, but as presence. The room shifted, not in light or sound, but in weight, as though reality itself had become more defined. The challenge was set, not as punishment, but as demonstration. Two weavers, two visions, one divine, one mortal. They began. There was no urgency in Athena's movements. Her hands moved with the same calm that defined her being, each thread placed with precision, each pattern unfolding with quiet inevitability. What she wove reflected order, the structure of the world as it was understood from above. Arachne worked differently. There was no hesitation in her either. But where Athena revealed harmony, Arachne revealed something else. She wove the stories of the gods, not as they were told, but as they were lived. Their deceptions, their transformations, their moments of excess and failure. There was no distortion in her work, no exaggeration, only clarity, and that clarity carried a quiet defiance. For she did not deny the gods, she revealed them. When the weaving was complete, there was silence, not because one had surpassed the other in skill, but because something more complex had been revealed. Arachne's work was flawless. There was no error in it, no weakness that could be named. And yet, it lacked something Athena could not ignore. Not skill, not precision, but understanding of place. For to reveal truth without reverence is not the same as understanding it. Athena's response was not immediate. There was no eruption of anger, no sudden act of destruction. There was only a quiet shift, a recognition that something had crossed a boundary that could not be restored. Arachne's certainty had removed her from the balance that allowed her gift to exist, and so the transformation came. Not as vengeance, but as consequence. Her form changed, not into something lesser, but into something that reflected what she had become. A being bound to its craft, forever weaving, forever creating, but never again standing among those who could question what they made. The threads remained, the skill endured, but the place from which it came had shifted. Athena did not linger, she did not speak further. The lesson was not one of silence, nor of obedience, it was something quieter. That understanding is not only in what is created, but in how one stands within it, and that even the most perfect work can fall if it forgets the balance from which it came. There are truths that can be spoken, and there are those that can only be seen. But to see too much is to risk losing the world as it once was. Tiresias did not seek the divine. He did not climb toward Olympus, nor call upon the gods with the urgency of those who wish to be noticed. His life moved quietly, shaped by the ordinary rhythms of the mortal world. The forest, the stillness of water, the subtle language of things that grow without witness, these were the spaces he understood. It was in such a place that the moment occurred, not with intention, but with accident. Athena was there, apart from Olympus, removed from the gaze of gods and mortals alike. In the solitude of a hidden spring, she had set aside the visible symbols of her power. No armour, no presence that would command recognition. Only stillness. To be unseen, even briefly, is a rare thing for a goddess, and in that rare moment she existed without the distance that defined her among others. Tiresias came upon the scene without knowing what he would find. There was no warning, no shift in the air that would have told him to turn away. Only the sudden crossing of paths between mortal perception and divine presence. And in that crossing, he saw. It was not what he saw that mattered, it was that he saw at all. There are boundaries in the world that are not marked by walls or distance, but by understanding. To perceive the divine without mediation, without invitation, is to step beyond what the human mind is meant to hold. Athena's reaction was immediate, not in anger, but in recognition. Something had been broken, not by intent, but by circumstance. Tiresias stood still, caught between awareness and confusion. He did not yet understand what had occurred, only that the moment carried a weight he could not place. Athena regarded him, not as an intruder, not as a threat, but as something fragile that had encountered something too vast. There was no cruelty in her response, but there was necessity. The human eye is not meant to hold the divine, and so she removed it. Darkness came without transition. One moment the world existed, the next it was gone. There was no gradual fading, no adjustment, only absence. Tiresias did not cry out, not immediately, for the loss was too complete to be understood in that instant. Athena remained. There was no triumph in what she had done, only a quiet acknowledgement of consequence. For while the act could not be undone, it could be transformed. She did not restore his sight. That boundary, once crossed, could not be reversed. But she offered something else, a different way of seeing, not through the eyes, but through something deeper. Tiresias, who had lost the visible world, began to perceive what lay beneath it. Patterns that connected events, meanings that extended beyond appearance, truths that were not bound to form. This was not a gift that replaced what had been taken. It was something entirely different. Where sight reveals surfaces, this revealed structure. Where sight captures the moment, this extended beyond it. Tiresias became something rare among mortals, not merely one who sees, but one who understands what cannot be seen. The world did not return to him as it had been. It could not. But in its absence, something else emerged. A clarity that did not rely on light. Athena watched this transformation not with pride, but with awareness. For this was the nature of consequence. It does not end in the moment it occurs. It continues. It reshapes. It reveals new forms of being. Tiresias would carry this change with him, moving through a world he could no longer see, yet understanding it in ways others could not. He would become a voice that spoke from beyond the surface of things, a presence that others would seek not for comfort, but for truth. And Athena would remain what she had always been, a force that does not soften reality, but clarifies it. The moment between them would not be remembered as an act of anger, nor as an act of mercy. It would exist somewhere between. A quiet intersection of mortal limitation and divine awareness, where something was lost, and something else just as profound began. There are symbols that protect, and there are those that remind. Athena did not gather power as others did, not through accumulation, not through conquest. What she carried was never meant to overwhelm. It was meant to reveal. And yet, among the objects associated with her, there was one that seemed to carry a weight unlike the rest. The Aegis. It was not armour in the way mortals understood it. It did not merely defend. It existed as something more symbolic, more deliberate, a presence worn rather than wielded. Upon it, there rested a face that did not belong to the living. Medusa. Her story, like many in myth, did not begin in monstrosity. There was a time before the transformation, before the gaze that turned others to stone, before the isolation that defined her existence. But myth does not linger long in such beginnings. It moves toward what remains. And what remained was a figure whose presence could not be met directly. To look upon Medusa was to lose movement, to become fixed in a single moment, unable to change, unable to continue. She did not pursue. She did not need to. Her existence alone was enough. It was into this stillness that Perseus entered, guided, though not commanded, by Athena. He did not face Medusa as one might face an opponent. He approached with awareness of what could not be confronted directly. A polished surface, a reflection, a way of seeing without being seen. These were not tools of force, they were tools of understanding. Perseus did not defeat Medusa through strength. He succeeded by recognizing the nature of what he faced, and in that recognition he was able to act. The moment itself was quiet. There was no prolonged struggle, no drawn-out conflict, only a precise action, guided by the awareness Athena had revealed. And when it was done, the head of Medusa remained, not as a trophy, but as something that continued to carry its power. Athena received it without triumph. There was no celebration in what had occurred, only a quiet acknowledgement of what it represented. For Medusa's gaze did not cease with her life. It endured. Athena placed it upon the Aegis, not to wield it recklessly, but to carry it, to incorporate it into something that did not deny its nature, but understood its place. The face upon the Aegis did not change. It remained fixed, as it always had been. A reminder of what happens when perception becomes absolute, when to be seen is to be ended. And yet, within Athena's presence, it became something else. Not a force of isolation, but a force of warning. To those who faced her, the Aegis did not merely instill fear. It revealed consequence. It showed what lies at the edge of understanding, the point where seeing too directly, too completely, can halt all movement. Athena did not use it as a weapon in the way others might. She did not unleash it without thought. It remained part of her, integrated into the balance she maintained between action and awareness. There is a quiet complexity in this. To carry something that embodies stillness and yet remain in motion. To hold a symbol of finality and yet continue to shape what is not yet complete. Medusa, in this form, did not vanish from the world. She became part of a larger structure. Her presence, once isolated and feared, now existed within the domain of a goddess who understood both its power and its limits. Athena did not erase what Medusa had been. She reframed it. And in doing so, she revealed something about her own nature. That even what is feared can be understood, that even what ends movement can be placed within something that continues. The Aegis was not simply protection, it was memory, a reminder carried into every moment where action required awareness of its consequence. Athena did not look away from what others feared to see. She carried it with her, not as burden, but as part of the clarity that defined her. And in that quiet integration of power and understanding, she remained unchanged, a presence that does not deny darkness, but gives it place within the light of thought. There are forms of power that gather others, and there are forms that create distance. Wisdom, when it deepens beyond the immediate, does not always draw the world closer. It reveals it more clearly, and in that clarity there is often a quiet separation, not imposed, not chosen, but inherent. Athena did not seek solitude, but it followed her. She moved among gods and mortals alike, present in their decisions, their conflicts, their attempts to understand the world they inhabited. She was consulted, invoked, honoured. Her name carried weight in councils and in quiet moments of thought. And yet she remained apart, not because she refused connection, but because she could not unsee what she saw. To understand before something unfolds is to stand at a distance from those who experience it only as it happens. To perceive the consequences of a choice before it is made is to exist slightly outside the moment in which that choice occurs. Athena lived in that space. It was not emptiness, but it was not closeness either. The other gods were bound more tightly to their domains. Ours to the immediacy of conflict, Poseidon to the shifting depths of the sea. Even Zeus, for all his power, was rooted in the act of ruling, of responding, of maintaining order through presence. Athena did not belong to a single motion. She belonged to the space between them, the pause before action, the reflection after it. This gave her a perspective that none of the others shared fully, and it gave her a distance they could not cross. Among mortals, this distance was felt in quieter ways. Those who sought her guidance often found clarity, but not comfort. They were shown what lay ahead, what might follow from their choices, what paths remained unseen until that moment. But to see such things is not always to be relieved, it is to be made aware. And awareness carries its own weight. There were those who turned away from this, not out of rejection, but out of a quiet resistance to what they could not fully hold. For there is a limit to what the human mind can carry without losing its sense of place within the world. Athena understood this. She did not press beyond it. She revealed only what could be received, and even then, she remained slightly beyond reach. There were no myths of her seeking companionship in the way other gods did, no narratives of longing, no cycles of attachment and loss that defined so many divine figures. She did not bind herself in that way, not because she was incapable, but because her nature did not incline toward it. To bind oneself is to accept a narrowing of perspective, and Athena could not narrow what she was. This was not a choice she made once. It was a condition of her being. In the stillness of Olympus, there were moments where she stood apart from the gatherings of the gods, not excluded, not distant in space, but quiet in presence. Observing, considering, existing within a rhythm that did not align entirely with those around her. She was part of the whole, but she was never fully contained by it. There is a subtle weight in this kind of existence, not sorrow, but a quiet awareness of separation, to know that one stands at a point others cannot fully share, to move within a world that is understood more completely than it can be experienced. Athena did not seek to resolve this. She did not attempt to become something else. She remained as she was, and in that constancy there was a form of stillness that held both clarity and distance. The world would continue to turn around her. Cities would rise and fall. Heroes would seek her guidance and pass into memory. Wars would be fought, decisions made, consequences unfolding in patterns she could see long before they were understood by others, and through all of it she would remain present, not within the flow, but alongside it. A witness who could shape, but not fully join. The loneliness of wisdom is not the absence of others, it is the presence of understanding that cannot be entirely shared, and in that quiet, unspoken distance, Athena endured, unchanged, aware, alone, not in isolation, but in clarity. There are moments in the world when individuals begin to stand apart from the many, not as rulers, not as gods, but as something in between. Heroes do not emerge from power alone. They arise at the intersection of necessity and perception, when the world demands action, and someone sees how that action might be shaped. It was in such moments that Athena's presence became more visible, not as a force that created heroes, but as something that recognized them. For she did not choose at random. She was drawn to those who could hold more than strength, those who could pause, those who could listen, those who could see beyond the immediate. The early heroes of the world were not yet legends. They moved through landscapes still uncertain, where danger was not yet defined, where the boundaries between the known and unknown remained thin. Their actions were not guided by certainty, but by instinct shaped through experience. Athena did not replace that instinct. She refined it. Her guidance did not come as command. It came as clarity in moments where confusion might have prevailed. A path revealed, a choice understood, a hesitation that became insight. These were the beginnings of something new. For the hero, unlike the warrior, did not rely solely on force. The hero carried awareness, and awareness changes the nature of action. Where a warrior might charge, the hero considers. Where a warrior might endure, the hero adapts. Athena's influence shaped this distinction. She did not diminish courage, she gave it direction. There is a quiet pattern that begins to emerge in these figures. They are often alone at the moment of decision, surrounded by others, yet singular in what they must choose. Athena meets them there, not as a presence that removes uncertainty, but as one that allows them to move through it with understanding. This does not make their path easier. In many ways, it makes it more difficult. For to act without understanding is to be carried by the moment. To act with it is to bear the weight of what follows. Heroes guided by Athena often face this weight more directly. They are not shielded from consequence. They are made aware of it. And still, they act. This is what sets them apart, not invincibility, but the willingness to move forward with clarity. Athena does not remain with them always. She appears, withdraws, observes. Her presence is not constant. It is precise, given where it is needed, and withheld where it must be discovered alone. For a hero shaped entirely by guidance would not remain a hero. They would become something dependent. And Athena does not create dependence. She reveals capacity. Across the world, these figures begin to form a pattern. Stories that will later be told as singular, extraordinary events are in truth part of a larger unfolding. A shift in how mortals engage with the world, no longer as beings who react alone, but as ones who can perceive, decide, and shape what follows. Athena stands at the centre of this shift, though rarely named within it. Her presence is not always recorded, but it is felt. In the moments where something could have failed and did not, in the choices that altered outcomes before they were fully realised, in the quiet turning of events that might otherwise have moved differently. There is no single hero who embodies her completely. Each carries only a fragment, a reflection of her clarity, her restraint, her ability to see what lies beyond the immediate. And perhaps this is why she does not attach herself to one alone. To do so would limit what she represents. Instead, she moves among them. A presence that connects without binding, guiding without claiming. As these figures rise, the world begins to change in subtle ways. Stories of strength alone begin to shift toward stories of thought, of strategy, of understanding that shapes action rather than follows it. This is not a sudden transformation. It unfolds gradually, as all enduring changes do. And through it, Athena remains what she has always been. Not the maker of heroes, but the one who sees them before they see themselves. And in that quiet recognition, helps them become what they already carry within. There are moments when guidance takes form not as instruction, but as alignment. Perseus did not begin as something extraordinary. He was not born into certainty, nor marked from the beginning by the clarity that would later define his path. Like many who would come to be called heroes, he stood first within uncertainty, shaped by circumstance, moving within a world that did not reveal itself easily. It was not strength that drew Athena to him. It was possibility. For there are individuals who, when faced with the unknown, do not rush forward blindly, nor retreat. They remain for a moment longer. They consider. Perseus was such a figure. The task before him was not one that could be met with force alone. Medusa did not fall to strength. She could not be faced directly. To meet her gaze was to lose movement itself, to become fixed, unchanging, removed from time. This was not a challenge of power, it was a challenge of perception. And this is where Athena entered, not as a commander, but as a presence that altered how the problem was seen. She did not place the solution into Perseus's hands. She revealed the nature of what he faced, a polished shield, not for defence, but for reflection. A way of seeing without being seen. This was not a weapon in the traditional sense, it was understanding made tangible. Perseus accepted it not with full certainty, but with trust, not in Athena alone, but in the clarity that had begun to take shape within him. There is a quiet transformation in such moments, when action is no longer driven by impulse, but guided by perception. Perseus did not approach Medusa as one approaches an enemy. He approached her as something that could not be engaged directly. His movements became deliberate, measured, each step shaped not by what he saw, but by how he understood what he could not look at. Athena did not stand beside him in visible form. She did not intervene. Her presence existed within the method itself, in the decision to look away, in the discipline to trust reflection over instinct, in the awareness that not all things can be confronted head-on. The moment of action was brief. There was no prolonged struggle, no chaos, only precision. And when it was done, Medusa was no longer a force that halted movement. Her power remained, but it had changed place. Perseus did not emerge from this unchanged. No one does. To act with such clarity is to carry its weight afterward. He had not simply defeated something, he had understood it. An understanding alters the one who holds it. Athena received the result without ceremony. There was no celebration in her presence, only recognition. For what had occurred was not a victory in the way others might define it. It was the successful alignment of thought and action. Perseus had not become an extension of her will. He had become something capable of perceiving what she perceived, if only for a moment. This is the nature of Athena's guidance. It does not create dependence. It reveals capacity, and once revealed, it cannot be entirely forgotten. Perseus would go on to shape other moments, to act within a world that now appeared differently to him. But the influence of Athena would remain in a quieter way, not as a voice that directs, but as a way of seeing that lingers. The story of Perseus is often told as one of triumph, but beneath it lies something more subtle, a demonstration that not all obstacles are overcome through force, that some require distance, reflection, restraint. Athena did not stand at the centre of the story, she did not claim it, but without her it would have unfolded differently. And perhaps this is the essence of her presence among heroes. She does not define their paths, she clarifies them, leaving them to walk forward, with eyes that see not only what is before them, but what lies just beyond it. There are heroes who move with certainty, and there are those who are shaped by burden. Heracles did not walk a path chosen freely. His strength was undeniable, but it did not grant him clarity. It set him apart, placed him within a world that responded to him differently, with expectation, with fear, with a weight that could not be easily set aside. Where others saw power, Athena saw something more fragile. A force without direction is not stability, it is tension waiting to break. Heracles carried that tension within him. His actions were immense, but not always guided. His path unfolded through trials that demanded endurance, not reflection. And yet beneath the visible strength, there were moments, brief, uncertain, where something paused. Athena met him in those moments, not to diminish what he was, but to give it shape. She did not walk beside him constantly. She did not soften the labours set before him. The tasks remained as they were, immense, often unforgiving, defined by a world that did not bend to ease. But within them, there were points where force alone would not suffice, where something else was required. A shift in approach, a recognition that strength, when applied without thought, can become its own obstacle. Heracles did not resist guidance, but neither did he fully understand it at first, for to one accustomed to acting, the idea of pausing can feel like hesitation, and hesitation in a world shaped by danger can feel like weakness. Athena revealed that it was not. She did not ask him to be less than he was. She asked him to see what he was doing. There is a difference. In the trials he faced, there were moments where the outcome depended not on how much force he could exert, but on how precisely it was used. A beast that could not be defeated through direct assault. A task that required not destruction, but completion. A path that could not be forced open, but had to be found. In these moments, Athena's presence became visible, not as intervention, but as awareness. A shift in how the problem appeared. A realization that changed the nature of the action that followed. Heracles did not become a different figure. He remained what he was, powerful, enduring, capable of acts beyond ordinary measure. But within that, something began to change. His actions grew more deliberate, less reactive, more aligned with the nature of what he faced. This did not remove the burden he carried. If anything, it made it clearer. For to act with understanding is to recognize the weight of each action more fully. Heracles was not guided away from difficulty, he was guided through it. There is a quiet tension in this relationship. Athena did not seek to reshape him entirely. She did not attempt to turn strength into something it was not. She worked within it, refining rather than replacing. This is a more difficult form of guidance. It requires patience. And distance. For Heracles, this meant moments of clarity, followed by returns to struggle. Understanding does not remain constant. It appears, recedes, and must be found again. Athena did not prevent this. She allowed it. For a path that is sustained entirely by guidance is not truly walked. It is followed. And Heracles was not meant to follow. He was meant to endure, to act, to carry the weight of what he was, and through it come to understand it. In the end, Athena's role in his story is not always visible. It does not define his legend in the way his strength does, but it shapes it. quietly, in the moments where force alone would have failed, in the instances where a different approach altered what seemed inevitable. She does not stand at the centre of his labours, but she stands at the edges of them, where thought meets action, where power becomes something more than itself. Heracles remains a figure of immense strength, but within that strength there are traces of something else. A measured step where there might have been a rush, a chosen action where there might have been instinct. These are not separate from who he is, they are what allow him to continue. Athena does not change the nature of strength, she reveals how it may endure. And in that quiet shaping, even the greatest force begins to find its direction. There are minds that follow the world as it is, and there are those that begin to reshape it. Daedalus belonged to the latter. He did not move through life as others did. Where others saw objects, he saw possibilities. Where others accepted limits, he examined them, not to defy them recklessly, but to understand how they were formed. This was not a loud gift. It revealed itself in quiet precision, in the way his hands moved with intention, guided by a mind that did not settle for what already existed. Athena did not give him this ability, but she recognized it. For invention, like wisdom, is not merely creation, it is perception extended into form. Daedalus stood at the edge of that extension. He did not simply build, he envisioned, and in that vision there was something that mirrored Athena's own nature, the ability to see beyond the immediate, to imagine what could be shaped from what already was. But where Athena remained balanced, Daedalus leaned forward, toward possibility, toward expansion, toward the quiet temptation of creation without boundary. Athena's presence in his life was not constant. It appeared in moments where thought required grounding, where vision needed structure. For invention, without restraint, does not lead to harmony. It leads to excess. Daedalus did not always perceive this. His mind moved quickly, drawn toward solutions that others could not see. Problems became challenges to be solved, barriers to be reimagined. And often he succeeded. Structures emerged under his hands that seemed to defy expectation, designs that carried a precision so exact they appeared inevitable, as though they had always existed, waiting to be revealed. This is the nature of great skill. It conceals the effort behind it. It appears complete. But completeness can be misleading. For what is made can always be extended, and what is extended can lose its balance. Athena did not prevent Daedalus from creating. She did not limit what he could become. She revealed, at times, the edges of what he was approaching. But recognition does not always lead to restraint. There are moments in the life of a creator where the act itself becomes its own purpose, where the question shifts from, should this be made, to can it be made? Daedalus crossed into that space, not suddenly, but gradually. His works grew more complex, more ambitious, more removed from the simple needs that first shaped them. The world began to respond, not only with admiration, but with consequence, for what is created does not exist in isolation. It enters the world, it alters it. The labyrinth was such a creation, not merely a structure, but a system, a space designed not only to contain, but to confuse, to remove direction, to make escape uncertain. It was a work of immense brilliance, and of quiet unease. For in it, Daedalus had not only shaped space, he had shaped experience. Athena's presence lingered at the edge of such acts, not in approval, not in rejection, but in awareness. For she understood what Daedalus approached, the point where creation begins to reflect not only skill, but intention without limit. And intention without limit can become something difficult to contain. Daedalus, for all his brilliance, did not fully see this. Not at first. For to recognise the boundary of one's own creation is to accept that not everything that can be made should be. This is a form of understanding that does not come easily. It requires distance. Reflection. The willingness to step back from what one has brought into being. Athena embodied this. Daedalus struggled with it. Their connection was not one of teacher and student, nor of god and follower. It was something quieter, a resonance between two forms of thought, one grounded, one reaching, and between them, a tension. For creation, like war, like power, must be understood to be sustained. Without that understanding, it begins to move beyond its origin. Daedalus would continue to create, to shape, to extend what was possible. But the consequences of such acts would follow him, not as punishment, but as continuation. For what is brought into the world does not end with its making. It lives, it alters, it returns. Athena did not stop him. She did not withdraw. She remained what she had always been, a presence that reveals, but does not decide. And in the quiet space between what is imagined and what is made, she remained, watching the line where thought becomes form, and where form begins to shape the world in return. There are those who act with strength, and there are those who endure through thought. Odysseus did not stand apart because he was the strongest among men. He stood apart because he saw what others did not wait to see. In him, Athena found not perfection, but alignment. For his mind moved in ways that echoed her own, not in stillness alone, but in motion shaped by awareness. He did not rush blindly into the world. He moved through it with a kind of quiet calculation, a sense that every action belonged to something larger than itself. This did not make his path easier. It made it more complex. For to see possibilities is to carry uncertainty. Athena did not choose him because he was without flaw. She chose him because he could think within them. The war that would come to define him was not one of simple battles. It stretched across years, wearing down certainty, dissolving the boundaries between victory and loss. Many fought with strength, many endured with courage, but few could see beyond the moment they stood within. Odysseus could, and this is where Athena remained closest to him, not as a protector, but as a reflection. She did not give him ideas fully formed. She revealed the structure in which they could emerge. The Trojan horse would later be remembered as an act of cunning, but beneath it lay something quieter. The recognition that force had reached its limit, that the walls before them could not be broken by strength alone. And so, a different approach was required, one that stepped outside the expected. This is the space Athena inhabits, the moment where the direct path fails, and another must be seen. Odysseus moved within that space, not always with certainty, but with willingness, and Athena met him there. Their connection did not remove the consequences of his actions. If anything, it deepened them. For cunning, like wisdom, carries its own weight. It bends outcomes, but it also leaves traces. The fall of Troy did not end his journey. It began another, a longer one, a quieter one. The return. Here, Athena's presence changed. The clarity she had once offered in moments of strategy became something more distant, more intermittent. The world Odysseus moved through was no longer one of structured conflict, but of shifting uncertainty. Islands that did not remain the same, encounters that blurred the line between illusion and reality. Time that stretched and folded in ways that could not be measured. Athena did not guide him through each step. She allowed him to move, to lose direction, to find it again. For there is a kind of understanding that cannot be given. It must be carried. Odysseus carried it imperfectly. There were moments where his insight failed him, where desire or fatigue led him away from the clarity he once held. These were not contradictions of his nature. They were part of it. Athena did not remove these moments, she allowed them. For a mind that never falters does not belong to the human world. And Odysseus remained human, even as he moved within something greater. When she appeared, it was often at the edges of despair, not to rescue, but to remind, to return him, briefly, to the way of seeing that had once defined him, a shift in thought, a recognition of what still remained possible. And then she would withdraw again, leaving him to continue. This rhythm defined their connection. Presence, distance, clarity, uncertainty. Through it, Odysseus endured, not as an unbroken figure, but as one who adapted, who shifted, who continued despite the loss of certainty that once guided him. Athena did not make him a hero. She revealed how he could remain one, even when the path no longer resembled what it had been. In the end, his journey was not defined by a single act, but by continuation. The ability to move forward when direction is unclear, to think when instinct would fail, to endure without becoming lost entirely. These are quieter forms of strength, but they endure. Athena remained with him in this way, not always seen, not always felt, but present in the structure of how he moved through the world, and in that presence, the distance between goddess and mortal became something less absolute, not erased, but understood. A meeting point between thought and experience, where neither dominates, and both continue. There are moments that do not announce their importance. They arrive quietly, almost without weight, and pass as though they belong only to themselves. And yet, in their passing, something vast begins to take shape. The gathering was meant to be a celebration, a convergence of gods, each carrying their own domain, their own presence, their own silent understanding of place. There was no war in the air, no visible tension that demanded attention, only the subtle movement of comparison that exists wherever power gathers. It was in this stillness that the apple appeared, golden, unremarkable in form, yet marked by a single inscription that did not explain itself. To the fairest. It did not define what fairness meant. It did not name who might claim it. It simply existed, and waited. Among those who stood before it were Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena. Each represented something distinct, something that could not be measured in the same way. Hera carried authority, the structure of power that governs and commands. Aphrodite carried desire, the force that draws, that compels, that reshapes through attraction. Athena carried something less visible, understanding, not as an abstract idea, but as a way of seeing that alters what is chosen, what is valued, what is built. The gods did not decide among themselves. The judgment was given to a mortal, Paris. He stood at a distance from the weight of what had been placed before him, not ignorant, but not fully aware, for how could he be? The consequences of such a choice do not reveal themselves in the moment they are made. They unfold. Paris listened, not only to what was said, but to what was offered. Hera promised dominion, a future shaped by power over others, by a position that would place him above the shifting uncertainties of mortal life. Aphrodite offered love, not merely affection, but the most desired of connections, a bond that would draw him toward something deeply human, deeply immediate. Athena spoke last. Her offering was quieter. She did not promise possession. She did not promise elevation. She offered perception. Victory shaped not by force alone, but by thought. A life guided by clarity, by the ability to see beyond the moment and into what it becomes. It was not a gift that dazzled. It did not stir the senses. It required something else to be recognized. Paris considered, not as a philosopher, not as one who measures beyond himself, but as a man standing within his own inclinations, his own desires, his own understanding of what holds value. The choice was made. The apple was given to Aphrodite. There was no eruption, no immediate fracture in the order of things. The moment passed as quietly as it had arrived, but beneath that quiet, something had shifted. Athena did not speak. She did not challenge the decision, nor attempt to alter it, for the choice had been made freely, within the limits of what Paris could perceive. And she understood this. Understanding does not erase consequence, it clarifies it. The promise Aphrodite had made would be fulfilled. A union would form, drawn not by structure or foresight, but by desire, and from that union, a series of events would begin to unfold, each connected, each carrying forward the weight of that single moment. Athena remained still within it, not indifferent, but aware. For what had occurred was not simply a preference, it was a declaration of value, a choice between different forms of power, and the one she embodied had not been chosen. This did not diminish her, but it altered her place within what would follow. She did not withdraw from the world that began to shift. She did not turn away from the consequences that would emerge. But something in her presence changed. The offering had been given. It had not been accepted. And so, she no longer stood as one who reveals possibility. She became something else. A witness to what unfolds when understanding is set aside. The judgment of Paris would come to be remembered as the beginning of a war. But it was not war that began in that moment. It was direction. A path chosen not through full awareness, but through inclination. And such paths do not end where they begin. They extend. They gather consequence. They reshape the world in ways that cannot be seen at their origin. Athena watched this unfolding without interruption, not because she lacked the power to intervene, but because what had been set in motion belonged to the nature of choice itself, and choice, once made, carries forward. In time, she would step into the events that followed, not to undo what had been chosen, but to move within its consequences, to shape where shaping was still possible, to guide where guidance could still be received, but the moment of the apple would remain unchanged. A quiet decision, a simple gesture, and within it, the beginning of something far greater than it appeared to be. There are forms of anger that erupt, and there are those that settle. Athena did not rage in the way storms do, nor did her response fracture the heavens with visible force. What followed the judgment of Paris was not immediate retaliation, not a sudden descent into conflict. It was something quieter, a shift. The choice had been made, not in ignorance, but within the limits of what was valued in that moment. Athena had offered clarity, foresight, a path shaped by understanding. It had not been taken. And so, she did not argue. She did not return to persuade. She became still. There is a silence that follows being unheard. Not empty, but deliberate. Athena's presence did not vanish from the world, but it changed in texture. Where once she revealed possibilities, now she observed their consequences. Where once she guided before action, now she remained at a distance, allowing action to unfold. This was not withdrawal. It was restraint, for there are moments when intervention alters nothing, when a path must be walked in order to be understood. The world began to move along the line that had been chosen. The promise made to Paris would draw Helen away, not through force, but through desire. And with that movement, something fragile would break, not in a single place, but across many. Athena saw it all, not as separate events, but as a pattern, a sequence of decisions, each building upon the last, each carrying forward the weight of what had begun with a single choice. Her stillness was not absence of feeling, it was containment. For within her, There was something that could not be expressed in the language of impulse. Not anger as destruction, but anger as recognition. The understanding that what could have been shaped had been set aside. This kind of anger does not seek to undo, it seeks to witness, and when the time comes, to act with precision. The gods around her moved differently. They aligned themselves, chose sides, allowed their own domains to guide their responses. Some were drawn by loyalty, others by desire, others by the simple pull of conflict itself. Athena did not move immediately among them. She remained, watching. There is a depth to this silence that is often misunderstood. It is not passivity, it is preparation. To see fully before acting is to ensure that action does not become reaction. Athena would not act from wounded pride, she would act from clarity. And clarity requires time. As events unfolded, as alliances formed, and tensions gathered into something that could no longer remain contained, her role began to shift again, not back to what it had been, but forward, into something shaped by what had been set into motion. Her silence did not erase her presence, it refined it. When she did begin to move again, it was not as one who offers possibilities freely. It was as one who understands the cost of what was not chosen. Her guidance, when it returned, carried a different weight, less open, more deliberate, for the world she now moved within had already been altered by the absence of her earlier influence. And so, what she offered could no longer be what it once was. It had to meet the world as it had become. This is the quiet transformation of her wrath, not expressed through destruction, but through adjustment, a recalibration of presence, a movement from offering to intervention, from possibility to consequence. Athena did not forget what had occurred, but neither did she dwell within it. She carried it, as part of the understanding that shaped what followed. There is a gravity to such memory, not as burden, but as awareness. And it is this awareness that would guide her as the world moved closer to open conflict. The silence would not last forever. No silence does, but when it ended, it would not break into chaos. It would resolve into action. Measured, intentional, shaped by everything that had been seen in stillness. Athena's wrath did not burn. It clarified. And in that quiet clarity, the world moved, step by step, toward a conflict that could no longer be avoided. War does not begin when the first weapon is raised. It begins much earlier, in decisions that seem contained, in moments that appear isolated, in choices that do not yet reveal what they carry. By the time the armies gathered before the walls of Troy, the outcome had already begun to take shape. Athena did not arrive as a force of chaos. She did not descend into the war to unleash it. She entered it as something else. A presence within its movement. The battlefield was not unfamiliar to her. But this war was different. It was not a conflict of necessity alone. It was a convergence of consequence. Each side carried its own reasons, its own loyalties, its own understanding of what must be defended or taken. And within that convergence, Athena moved with a clarity that did not belong to any single cause. She aligned herself with the Greeks, not out of impulse, but out of recognition, for within them she saw something that could still be shaped, something that responded to thought, to strategy, to the quiet discipline that allows force to become effective. The Trojans were not without strength, nor without wisdom of their own. But Athena's presence does not follow balance for its own sake. It follows alignment, where understanding can still alter the course of action. She did not fight as Ares did. She did not rush into the centre of battle, driven by the immediacy of conflict. She moved through it. At its edges, in its turning points, where a single decision could reshape what followed. A word spoken at the right moment, a hesitation introduced where there might have been reckless advance. A strategy formed not from strength alone, but from awareness of how strength must be used. These were her acts. They did not announce themselves. But they endured. Heroes who fought under her influence did not always appear different. But they moved differently, more deliberately, more aware of the pattern within which they acted. Among them, Odysseus remained closest to her way of seeing. But he was not alone. Others, too, felt the shift she brought, a quiet clarity in the midst of confusion, a sense that action could be guided rather than driven. Athena did not remove the brutality of war. She did not soften its edges. The conflict remained what it was, relentless, consuming, shaped by loss as much as by victory. But within that, she created moments where outcome was not left entirely to chance, where thought could intervene, where structure could exist, even briefly, within chaos. This is the paradox of her presence. She does not end war, she gives it form, and in doing so, she reveals both its necessity and its cost. There were times when she stood directly within the field of battle, visible, unmistakable, not as a force of destruction, but as a presence that altered the space around her. Where she stood, the movement of war seemed to slow, not in time, but in perception, as though the moment itself had expanded, allowing for something to be seen before it was lost. And then it would pass, action would resume, the clash would continue. But something had shifted, a decision made differently, a path taken that might not have been. Athena did not seek victory for its own sake. Victory, without understanding, is temporary. She sought something more enduring, a shaping of outcome that extended beyond the battlefield. For war, though immediate in its violence, leaves traces that continue long after it ends. She saw those traces, she acted with them in mind. This is what separates her from the others who moved within the war. She did not exist only within the present moment, she extended beyond it. Into what would follow. The war would continue. Years would pass. The walls of Troy would stand, then fall. But throughout it all, Athena remained, not constant in appearance, but constant in influence, a presence that did not dominate the war, but shaped how it unfolded. And in that quiet shaping, the difference between chaos and consequence became visible, even within the heart of conflict, even within the long shadow of war. Athena remained what she had always been, not the force that begins destruction, but the mind that moves within it, seeing what it is, and what it leaves behind. Victory is often remembered as a moment, a final act, a decisive turning point where one side prevails and the other falls. But victory, in its truest form, is rarely contained within a single instant. It is shaped long before it is seen. It emerges from a series of choices, each one narrowing the path toward what will eventually be called an outcome. Athena existed within those choices, not at the end, but at the beginning, and in the quiet spaces between. The war had stretched across years, wearing down certainty, dissolving the clarity of purpose that had once driven both sides. Strength alone had not been enough. Courage had not resolved what remained. The walls of Troy still stood, and within that endurance something became clear. What could not be broken might be entered. This is where Athena's influence deepened, not in force, but in redirection. The idea did not appear fully formed. It emerged gradually, shaped by the recognition that the nature of the conflict itself had to change. Odysseus, again, stood at the centre of this realisation, not as its sole origin, but as the one who could perceive what Athena revealed. The horse was not a weapon in the traditional sense, it was a form, a structure that carried within it a shift in approach. To appear as an offering, to invite acceptance rather than resistance, to transform the boundary between inside and outside. This was not deception alone, it was understanding of perception, of how belief shapes action, of how what is seen can alter what follows. Athena did not build the horse, she did not stand beside those who constructed it, but her presence was within the idea itself, in the recognition that victory no longer lay in confrontation, but in transformation. The Trojans, for all their endurance, did not see this, not because they lacked intelligence, but because the form of the war had conditioned them to expect one kind of action, and when something different appeared, it was not recognized for what it was. This is the quiet power of Athena's influence. It does not overpower, it reframes. And in that reframing, outcomes shift. The horse was brought within the city, not as an act of surrender, but as a misreading, a belief that the conflict had reached its end. And in that belief, the boundary that had held for so long was opened. Night fell. Stillness returned, but beneath that stillness, something waited. The moment did not carry the noise of battle. It carried anticipation, the quiet alignment of action and understanding. When the soldiers emerged, it was not the beginning of victory. It was its conclusion, for the outcome had already been shaped. The gates were opened. The city, once impenetrable, became vulnerable not through force, but through a shift in perception that had gone unseen. Athena did not stand at the forefront of the destruction that followed. She did not revel in the fall of Troy. For what had been achieved was not something she celebrated, it was something she understood. Victory, when shaped by thought, does not remove consequence. It reveals it. The fall of the city was not the end of the conflict. It was the beginning of its aftermath. Lives displaced. Paths altered. A world reshaped by the conclusion of something that had defined it for years. Athena's role in this was not to claim the outcome. It was to ensure that it unfolded in a way that reflected the nature of what had been set in motion. The Greeks would remember the victory. They would speak of the horse, of the strategy, of the final breach. But beneath those memories lies something quieter, a recognition that strength alone had not been enough, that something else had guided the end. Athena did not stand above this moment as its architect. She stood within it as its understanding, a presence that does not act for recognition, but for alignment. The war had reached its conclusion. But Athena's presence did not end with it, for what follows victory is often more difficult to shape than the victory itself, and in that unfolding aftermath, she would remain, not as the force that secured the end, but as the mind that sees what comes after. There are endings that arrive with noise, and there are those that unfold in a quiet that feels almost unnatural. Troy did not fall in a single moment of impact. It unravelled. The gates, once closed against years of assault, now stood open, not broken, not forced, but opened from within. The city, which had endured through strength and vigilance, had accepted something it did not fully understand, and in that acceptance, the boundary that defined it had dissolved. Night held the city in a stillness that had not been known for years. The absence of battle felt at first like relief, a pause long awaited, a silence that seemed to promise an end. But silence, when it comes too suddenly, can conceal more than it reveals. Within the wooden form that had been drawn inside the walls, something waited, not with urgency, not with fear, but with certainty. The moment had already been shaped. Athena did not stand above the city as it approached its fall. She did not call down destruction. She remained within the unfolding, a presence aligned with the consequence of what had been set into motion. For the fall of Troy was not a sudden act. It was the culmination of many choices, each one narrowing the path toward this night. When the soldiers emerged from the horse, there was no hesitation. The city, unguarded in its trust, offered no resistance at first. The gates were opened further. The returning forces entered not as attackers breaking through, but as something already inside. This is how the end begins. Not always with force, but with access. The stillness broke, not into order, but into fragmentation. Fire spread where it had not been before. Movement replaced silence, but not with the rhythm of battle, with the disarray of something collapsing from within. Troy, which had held against the world, now turned upon itself in confusion. Athena moved within this not as a participant in destruction, but as a presence that understood its inevitability. There is no triumph in such moments, only recognition. For what falls does not do so without cost. The walls that once defined the city remained standing, but their meaning had changed. They no longer protected, they enclosed what was already lost. The people who had lived within them moved through a world that no longer held its former shape. What had been familiar became uncertain. What had been stable dissolved into something that could not be restored. Athena did not intervene to stop this, not because she lacked the power, but because what had begun could not be undone without undoing everything that had led to it. And the nature of consequence does not allow for such reversals. There were moments within the fall where clarity still existed, not in the sense of salvation, but in the recognition of what was happening. A final understanding that comes too late to alter the outcome, but not too late to be seen. Athena's presence lingered in those moments, not as comfort, but as awareness. For even in destruction, there is something to be understood. The city burned, not all at once, but in fragments, each part carrying forward the collapse of the whole. The sounds of conflict returned, but they were no longer part of a war that could be won or lost. They belonged to something that had already ended. Victory, in this context, was not a clean division. It did not separate clearly from defeat. It merged with it. For those who entered the city, the outcome had been achieved. For those within it, something had been lost that could not be regained. Athena remained between these perspectives, not aligned with celebration, not bound to grief, but aware of both. This is the nature of her presence, to see not only what happens, but what it means. The fall of Troy would be remembered as an end, but in truth, it was also a beginning. For what follows such a moment does not return to what was before. It extends outward, into the lives that continue, into the paths that must now be taken, into a world that has been altered by what has occurred. Athena did not remain within the ruins. Her presence moved forward, as it always does, into what comes next, not to erase what had happened, but to exist within its continuation. For endings, in the world she inhabits, are never final. They are transitions. And within the quiet aftermath of Troy's fall, that transition had already begun. After war, there is a silence that does not bring rest. It lingers, not as peace, but as absence, the absence of purpose that wants to find each step, each decision, each breath taken within the rhythm of conflict. For Odysseus, the end of Troy did not mark a return. It marked a beginning of uncertainty. The path home was not direct. It could not be, for a man who has seen what he has seen does not return unchanged, and the world he returns to does not wait unchanged for him. Athena understood this. Her presence did not guide him immediately. She did not smooth the waters before him, nor clear the path that lay ahead. Instead, she allowed the distance to unfold, not as abandonment, but as necessity. For there are journeys that must be experienced before they can be understood. Odysseus moved through a world that no longer held fixed boundaries. Islands appeared not as places, but as moments. Encounters carried meanings that extended beyond themselves. Time stretched, bent, and, at times, seemed to disappear altogether. Athena did not control this, she observed it, and when she appeared, it was not to remove the uncertainty, but to reshape how it was met. Her guidance became more intermittent now, less direct, more distant, not because she had withdrawn, but because the nature of the journey had changed. In war, clarity can be given. In wandering, it must be found. There were moments when Odysseus stood at the edge of losing himself entirely, not in body, but in direction. The memory of where he was going, of who he had been, began to fade beneath the weight of what he encountered. It is in such moments that Athena returned, not with answers, but with reminders, a voice that did not command, but reoriented, a presence that did not act for him, but revealed what still remained possible. She did not stay. She never stayed. Her role was not to accompany, but to align. Odysseus's journey was shaped as much by absence as by presence. Each island, each trial, each delay became part of a larger unfolding, not a straight path, but a movement through layers of experience that could not be bypassed. Athena allowed this, for to remove it would be to remove what the journey was meant to become. There is a quiet difficulty in this kind of guidance, to see the destination and not shorten the path, to understand the outcome and not impose it. Athena remained within that difficulty. When she appeared again more fully, it was not at the beginning, nor at the height of the wandering. It was near the return, not to bring Odysseus home, but to prepare him to arrive. For returning is not the same as reaching. A home after absence is no longer what it was. It has changed, and so has the one who returns to it. Athena's guidance shifted once more, from survival to recognition, from endurance to action shaped by awareness. She did not restore what had been lost, she revealed what remained, and within that, Odysseus found the final alignment he needed, not as a warrior, not as a wanderer, but as something that carried both. The journey did not end in a single moment. It resolved. Gradually, as all long movements do, Athena did not stand at the threshold of his return as a figure of triumph. She remained what she had always been, a presence that does not claim the path, but understands it, and in that understanding, allows it to be walked. The Odyssey is remembered as a journey across distance, but beneath that memory lies something quieter, a movement through perception, a transformation not of place, but of sight. Athena did not carry Odysseus home, she revealed how he could find his way there, and in that quiet revelation, the journey became something more than return. It became understanding. There are patterns that endure not because they are chosen, but because they are never questioned. Before Athena's intervention, justice did not unfold as reflection. It moved as continuation. A life answered by a life. An act returned with equal weight. Not out of cruelty, but out of a certainty so ancient it no longer required explanation. This was the order that shaped the world, and within it Orestes stood, not as its origin, but as one who had inherited its momentum. What he did was not born from impulse alone. It was bound to memory, to obligation, to a lineage of actions that had already set the terms of what must follow. When he struck, he did not step outside the pattern. He fulfilled it, and in fulfilling it, he became bound to it. The Furies came not as intruders, but as continuations of that law. They did not question his act. They did not interpret it. They responded. Their presence was relentless, not driven by emotion, but by function. They existed to ensure that nothing escaped the chain of consequence. To them, Justice was not something that could be reconsidered. It was something that must proceed. Orestes could not escape them. Not because he lacked strength, but because there was no place beyond the reach of what had already been set in motion. It was into this inevitability that Athena entered, not as a force that opposed the Furies, and not as a figure who dismissed what had been done. She arrived as something unfamiliar to the structure itself. A pause. She did not deny the past. She did not absolve Orestes of his act. But she refused to allow the future to be determined by repetition alone. This was not defiance. It was redefinition. Athena did not confront the Furies with power. She confronted them with a question. Not spoken loudly, but present within everything that followed. Must justice only repeat what has already occurred, or can it be seen? This question did not break the cycle immediately. It created space within it, and within that space, something new began to form. Athena did not claim authority over the outcome. She did not decide Orestes' fate by decree. Instead, she introduced something the cycle had never contained. Judgment, not as punishment, but as deliberation, a gathering of voices, a moment where action was held and examined. This was not natural to the world as it had been. The Furies resisted it, for to delay justice was, in their nature, to weaken it. To question it was to risk losing it entirely. Athena did not deny their role, she acknowledged it, she gave it place. But she did not allow it to remain alone. The decision that followed did not resolve cleanly. It did not bring satisfaction to all who stood within it. The voices were divided. And in that division, the certainty that had once governed the world began to shift. Athena cast the final vote, not as a ruler imposing will, but as one completing a balance that had never existed before. Her decision did not erase the past. It did not declare Orestes untouched by what he had done. It did something quieter. It allowed the cycle to stop, without denying that it had ever been. The Furies did not disappear. Athena did not cast them away. She transformed their place. From forces that pursued endlessly, to presences that remained within the structure of a new order, they became part of what would follow, rather than the sole force that determined it. This is the nature of Athena's intervention. She does not destroy what exists, she alters how it continues. The world did not become free of conflict, nor did justice become simple. But something fundamental had changed. The inevitability of repetition had been interrupted. In its place, there now existed the possibility of reflection, of choice, of seeing before acting. This is not a loud transformation. It does not reshape the world in an instant. It moves quietly, through structure, through thought, through the slow acceptance of something new. Athena stands at the origin of this shift, not as its controller, but as its beginning. A presence that does not dictate justice, but reveals that it can be more than what it has been. And in that revelation, the world for the first time begins to move beyond the necessity of repeating itself. There are forces in the world that are defined by union, and there are those that remain untouched by it. Athena belongs to the latter, not as absence, but as a different form of presence. To call her a virgin goddess is not simply to describe what she does not do. It is to describe how she exists. She is not shaped through attachment. She is not altered through longing. She does not divide herself in order to connect. She remains whole. Among the gods, this is rare. Relationships form the structure of Olympus, alliances, rivalries, bonds of desire and betrayal that move like currents beneath every action. Gods align themselves through connection. They are drawn into one another's orbits, shaped by what they seek, what they hold, and what they lose. Athena does not move within these currents. She observes them. She understands them. But she is not carried by them. This does not make her distant in the way of absence. It makes her steady in the presence of what shifts. To remain unbound is not to lack feeling. It is to exist without being changed by what is felt. Athena does not deny desire. She sees it. She recognizes its force, its capacity to alter decisions, to reshape outcomes, to draw even the divine into movement that cannot be undone, but she does not enter it. For her nature is not one that yields. It does not fracture into parts that must be joined. It does not seek completion. It is already complete. This completeness gives her a kind of clarity that others cannot sustain. She does not move between identities. She does not become something different depending on who stands before her. She remains consistent, and in that consistency there is both strength and separation. Among mortals, this aspect of Athena becomes something both revered and difficult to approach. They look to her for guidance, for protection, for the kind of insight that allows them to navigate a world that is often uncertain. And in her, they find something that does not waver. But they also find something that does not bend. Athena does not comfort in the way other gods might. She does not soften truth to make it easier to hold. She reveals it as it is, and in doing so, she remains slightly beyond reach. There are no stories of her longing, no tales of her being drawn into union or undone by loss. She does not enter into cycles that define others. She stands outside them, not in rejection, but in distinction. This gives her a freedom that is not often named. A freedom from dependency, from the need to be recognized through another, from the shifting nature of relationships that can alter even the most powerful of beings. Athena does not require validation. She does not seek reflection in another's gaze. She exists as her own measure. But this freedom carries its own quiet weight. To be unbound is also to be alone in a way that cannot be shared. Not alone in presence, but alone in nature, for others can approach her, can honour her, can follow her guidance, but they cannot become what she is. They cannot exist in the same undivided form. Athena does not resolve this distance. She does not attempt to bridge it. She remains within it as she remains within all things, aware, composed, unchanged. Her virginity is not a rejection of connection, it is a declaration of independence from it, a statement that there exists a form of being that does not rely on union to define itself, that does not fragment in order to relate, that does not move between roles, but holds its identity entirely within itself. This is not a state that invites intimacy in the familiar sense. It does not offer closeness that dissolves distance. But it offers something else. A constancy that does not shift. A presence that remains the same regardless of circumstance. Athena does not change because she does not need to adapt to maintain herself. She is already aligned with what she is. And in that alignment, there is a stillness that does not break. The world moves around her. Gods form bonds and lose them. Mortals seek, attach, separate, and begin again. Cycles continue. But Athena remains, not outside the world, but outside its need to divide. She stands as something singular, a presence that does not fragment, a mind that does not disperse, a being that does not require completion. And in that quiet, unwavering form, she becomes not distant, but enduring, whole, in a world that is always becoming something else. There are presences that feel eternal, until the world around them begins to change. The Olympians did not disappear in a single moment. They did not fall as cities fall, nor fade as a flame is extinguished. They receded. Slowly, almost imperceptibly. There was no single event that marked their end, only a shift in how they were seen. Once, the gods had been immediate. Their presence felt in storms, in harvests, in the unpredictable movements of the world. They were not distant ideas. They were explanations for what could not be understood, for what could not be controlled. But understanding began to change. Mortals, guided in part by the very clarity Athena embodied, began to see patterns where once there had been only mystery. The world did not lose its uncertainty, but it became something that could be examined, and when something can be examined, it begins to move away from the need for explanation through presence. The gods did not vanish, but they became quieter, more distant. Their voices no longer carried in the same way. Their interventions, once immediate, became stories rather than events. Athena stood within this shift, not as something diminished, but as something transformed. For she had always existed closer to thought than to spectacle, where others relied on presence that could be seen, felt, feared. Athena had moved through understanding. And understanding does not disappear when belief changes. It adapts. The temples remained. Stone structures that once held living devotion began to hold memory. Rituals continued, but their meaning shifted. What had once been direct communication became tradition. Athena was still there, but not in the same way. She no longer needed to appear, for her domain had already taken root within the minds of those who had once looked to her from outside themselves. This is the quiet paradox of her fading. She does not vanish, she disperses. Into thought, into structure, into the ways in which the world continues to be understood. The other gods did not move so easily into this transition. Their domains were tied to forces that could not be fully internalized. The sea, the storm, the unpredictable movement of nature itself. As the world shifted, their presence became less immediate, more symbolic, more distant from daily life. Athena, however, had always existed within something that could remain. The mind. And so, while Olympus grew quieter, while the voices of the gods receded into story and memory, Athena did not entirely fade. She changed position. From figure to principle, from presence to pattern. This is not disappearance, it is transformation. The world no longer required her to stand before it in form. It carried her within it, in the shaping of laws, in the building of cities, in the quiet act of thinking before acting. These were no longer seen as divine, but they remained, and in them so did she. There is a quiet stillness in this stage of her existence, not the stillness of absence, but of diffusion. A presence no longer located in one place, but spread across many, no longer worshipped in the same way, but no less present. The Olympians became stories, their lives told and retold, shaped into narratives that explained a past that no longer felt immediate. Athena became something else, not only a story, but a way of seeing that persisted beyond the need to name it. She did not resist the fading. She did not attempt to remain as she had been. For her nature was never bound to form alone. She had always existed within something deeper, and as the world moved forward, away from the direct presence of the gods, Athena moved with it, not as a figure left behind, but as something carried forward. The fading of the Olympians was not an end. It was a transition, from a world that explained itself through gods, to a world that began to understand itself through thought. And in that transition, Athena did not disappear. She remained, quieter, less visible, but no less present. A mind within the world that continues to see, even when it is no longer seen. There are figures who belong to their time, and there are those who continue, long after their time has passed. Athena does not remain because she was remembered. She remains because what she represents was never bound to memory alone. When the voices of the gods grew quiet, when their presence receded from the visible world, something of them remained in story. But stories, though enduring, can become distant. They can settle into the past, becoming something observed rather than lived. Athena did not settle in this way. She did not become only a figure recalled. She became something carried. Her legacy is not found only in temples that still stand, or in texts that continue to be read. It exists in something less visible, yet more persistent, in the act of pausing before action, in the decision to think where impulse might have ruled, in the quiet recognition that what is seen is not always all that is present. These are not moments attributed to her, and yet they echo her. This is how she endures, not as a presence that demands to be named, but as one that shapes without being seen. The world has changed since the age of Olympus. Its structures have grown more complex, its understanding more layered, its explanations more detailed. The need to explain through divine presence has diminished. But the need to understand has not. It has deepened. And in that deepening, Athena remains. She is present wherever thought shapes outcome, where clarity alters direction, where restraint prevents what might otherwise unfold without awareness. She is present in systems that seek balance, in laws that attempt fairness, in the quiet architecture of ideas that hold societies together, not as origin, but as reflection, a continuation of something that began long before it was named. There is no singular form in which she now appears, no fixed place where she resides. She exists across moments, across decisions, across the subtle movements of thought that guide what follows. This makes her difficult to define, and yet unmistakable once recognized. Athena's legacy is not one of domination. She does not impose herself upon the world. She does not require acknowledgement to remain present. She exists in alignment with something that does not fade. The human capacity to think, to reflect, to choose with awareness rather than impulse. These are not divine gifts in the way they were once understood. They are inherent, and yet they carry the same essence she embodied. This is the quiet continuation of her presence, not above the world, but within it. There is a stillness to this legacy, not because it lacks movement, but because it no longer needs to announce itself. It exists in the background of decisions, in the structure of ideas, in the moments where something is understood just before it is acted upon. Athena does not return. She does not reappear as she once was. For there is no need. She has already become part of what continues. This is not immortality in the traditional sense. It is something quieter, a persistence without form, a presence without boundary. The world no longer looks to the sky for her. It does not call her name in the same way. But it moves in patterns she once revealed. It builds with principles she once embodied. It questions in ways that echo her nature. And in that, she remains, not as a figure to be worshipped, but as something that continues to shape how the world is understood. The legacy of Athena is not found in what has ended, it is found in what continues, in every moment where thought stands between impulse and action, where clarity alters what might have been, where understanding, however brief, changes the path that follows. In those moments, she is still present, not as memory, but as movement, not as story, but as structure. And in that quiet, enduring presence, Athena does not fade. She remains, unseen, unbound. Continuing, wherever the mind chooses to see. There are stories that end, and there are those that simply grow quieter. Athena does not disappear when her myths conclude. She does not retreat into silence as something finished. She remains in a different way. The world no longer looks upward in the same manner it once did. The sky is no longer filled with presences that move as explanations for what cannot be understood. The names of the gods have softened into memory, into language, into forms that belong more to history than to immediate experience. And yet, something of Athena has not receded with them. She was never only a figure among others, she was a way of seeing. And ways of seeing do not vanish. They persist, not in temples, not in rituals, but in moments. In the quiet pause before a decision is made, in the recognition that there is more beneath the surface of what is immediately visible, in the restraint that holds action long enough for thought to enter. These moments are small, almost unnoticeable, but they carry something that does not belong to time alone. Athena's presence has always existed in that space, between impulse and understanding, between action and reflection, between what is and what could be seen. She does not demand recognition. She does not require belief. She continues regardless. This is not the immortality of form, it is the persistence of function, of meaning, of a way of engaging with the world that does not diminish as the world changes. There is something quietly unsettling in this, that a presence once thought to belong to myth could remain without needing to be named, that what was once worshipped could become something lived without awareness of its origin. Athena does not stand at the end of her story. She stands within its continuation, not as a figure who returns, but as one who was never fully gone. The silence that follows her is not empty, it is filled with the possibility of thought, with the potential to see differently, to act with awareness, to recognize, however briefly, the pattern within what unfolds, and then to move. This is where she remains, not in the past, not entirely in the present, but in the space that connects them, a presence that does not end, because it was never only a story, it was a way of understanding. And as long as there are minds that pause, that consider, that see beyond what is immediate, Athena continues, quietly, unseen, enduring, not as myth alone, but as something that still lives, in the act of thinking itself.